Welcome to my channel, Brainies. Today we are going to discuss about the topic neurons. Let us see about the neurons briefly. What are neurons? Neurons are basically specialized cells which are the building blocks of the nervous system. It plays a crucial role in transmitting information throughout the body. They are the functional units of the nervous system and it is responsible for processing and transmitting signals in the form of electrical impulses. Neurons are essential for various functions including the sensory perception, motor control, cognition, and the regulation of bodily functions. The basic structure of neurons. Neurons consist of cell body, which is also called as soma, which is the central part of the neuron, dendrites. These are branched extensions of the cell body that receives and transmits signals from various other neurons. The other part is axon, which is a long, slender projection that carries nervous impulse away from the cell body. And the next is the axon terminals. So at the end of the axon, there are specialized structures called as axon terminals. Synapse. Synapse is a small gap between the axon terminal of one neuron and the dendrite or the cell body of another neuron. So neurotransmitters are released into this synapse to transmit the signals from one to another. This is the picture depicting the neuron. So this is the dendrite and this is the nucleus and this is called as cell body, and this is the axon hillock and this is the myelin sheath, and the space, the gap in between, we call it as node of Ranvier, and this is the Schwann cell and this is the axon terminal. So neuronal communication, it is the resting potential, action potential and neurotransmitters. Neurons basically have a resting potential, that is an electric charge across a cell membrane, and this potential is maintained by the selective permeability of the cell membrane. Action potential is when a neuron receives a stimulus, it can generate an action potential, that is a rapid change in the membrane potential which propagates along the axon. So this electric impulse allows communication over longer distances within the nervous system. Neurotransmitters, these are messengers that transmit signals across the synapse, and they are released from the axon terminals of one neuron and binds to the receptors on the dendrites and the dendrites or cell body of the another neuron, thereby transmitting the signal. So the classification of neurons. These are the basic classification. The first one is sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons, which is also called as association neurons. Sensory neurons transmit the signals from sensory receptors to the central nervous system, and motor neurons transmit the signals from the central nervous system to the muscles or the glands, controlling the movement or secretion. Interneurons found within the central nervous system, and these neurons usually connect the sensory and motor neurons, thereby playing a major role in processing information and decision making. The basic functions of neurons: transmission of signals, that is, neurons are specialized for transmission of signals in the form of electric impulse. These signals are known as action potential, which travels along the length of the neuron, that is the axon, following the communication over longer distances within the nervous system. The next is the integration of information. Neurons integrate information from multiple cell sources. The cell body, which is also called as soma, it receives signals from the dendrites, which are branched extension that receives the input from other neurons or sensory receptors. These cell body process the information and makes decision about whether to generate an action potential or not. Next is the sensory input. These sensory neurons are responsible for transmitting signals from the sensory receptors to the central nervous system. These signals basically convey the information from an external about the external environment and also the body's internal state. So next is the motor output. The motor neurons transmit signals from the central nervous system to the muscles or glands. These signals controls the muscle contraction, thereby leading to movement or even stimulate glandular secretion. The next is the interneuronal communication. These interneurons are known as association neurons, which is found within the central nervous system, and they connect sensory neurons to motor neurons, facilitate the integration of information. It plays a crucial role in decision making and the coordination of responses. The next is the synaptic transmission. Neurons communicate with each other and with the target cells, that is the muscles, glands and other neurons through synapses. At synapses, these neurotransmitters are released from the axonal terminals of one neuron and bind to the receptors on the dendrites of another neuron. This chemical transmission allows signal to be transmitted from one neuron to the next. The next is the generation of action potential. That is, neurons generate action potential, which are nothing but the changes in the membrane potential that enables the transmission of signals through the length of the axon. This initiation of action potential is triggered by the threshold level of the depolarization. The next is the adaptability and plasticity. Neurons exhibit plasticity, that is, which is a property that allows them to adapt and change according to the response. This adaptability is very much essential for learning and memory processes, including cognition. So these synaptic connections can be strengthened or weakened based on the patterns of neuronal activity. The next is the maintenance of resting membrane potential. Neurons maintain a resting potential, that is an electric charge across a cell membrane. So this resting state is essential for the readiness to respond to the stimuli immediately. Coordination of bodily function. Through the complex networks and circuits, neurons coordinate various bodily functions, that is, including the movement, sensory input, autonomic functions like heart rate, digestion, etc., and also the higher cognitive process. That's it with the neurons. Thank you for watching. Kindly support by subscribing and sharing. Meet you all in next video. Thank you once again.